I think they probably did the season the wrong way around, really. If they've had that slow first half of the season, then come out the block second half of the season, we'd all be, buzzing in.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Pundit podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined tonight by Mat Kendrick, Aston Villa correspondent and expert from Birmingham Live. He's in the house. Mat Kendrick, how are you doing, my friend? It's been a while since I've seen you.
It has been a while, yeah. I'm all right, Ben, thanks. Looking forward to the new season. We've been spoilt a little bit, haven't we, by having football matches on, 4 or 5 a day in some cases. So now all that's done and dusted and it's not coming home again for another year, then we can get stuck into the domestic scene again, can't we?
Back to the day job. I mean, I'm glad you touched upon the Euros and obviously being a Villa fan and a Villa supporter. Where else to go but Jack Grealish? I mean, look, I'm a huge Jack Grealish fan. And I was very disappointed with how he was handled through the tournament. As a Villa supporter, do you echo those thoughts as well? Do you think he was maybe mismanaged or underutilised, certainly by Gareth Southgate?
Possibly underutilised. I mean, as Villa fans, we've been clamouring for Jack Grealish. We've been banging this drum for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years now. And at each stage, people have said, yeah, but he's only done it. Has he done it enough in the Premier League? And was he a flat track bully in the Championship? And could he do it on the big stage? And he's answered all those critics every step of the way. And I think Southgate, to be fair, was probably one of those ones who took a little bit of convincing to really trust him. I don't really want to get into slagging off Gareth Southgate too much because he's achieved something that nobody has achieved since Sir Alf Ramsey in terms of getting us to a final. Could Jack Grealish have been involved more? I think he possibly could. I think the fact that, obviously the Germany game was probably the one where Southgate's called for him off the bench and he's turned the game. I think he's had touched the ball twice, but two goal involvements in that time. Selfishly, putting my patriotism to one side, I'm quite glad that Jack Grealish is coming back to Villa quite fresh, to be honest, or he will be when he gets his post-season holidays out of the way. But yeah, I'm glad that the rest of the world has cottoned on to him. Really, I wrote something probably a year ago saying, us Villa fans have been saying it before. It's a bit like when your mate was the first one to see Oasis in some working man's club, somewhere obscure, and been talking about it ever since. Oh, you've got to see this band. We've been like that with Jack Grealish. He's been ours, and he's been this little secret. And now the world has realised how good he is, which brings us a lot of pride and a lot of satisfaction that we weren't overhyping one of our own, but also brings us the annual worry that, Villa's kit's just been released, and every time the kit's released now, we're saying, can you just release it and do Jack Grealish signing his new contract at the same time? Yeah. So it brings this kind of summer of worry that, yes, we're glad that the world's sat up and taken notice, but can we still keep him a little bit longer, please?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Johnny Wilson. I don't know if it's a guy but he was working down at Notts County a few years back when Jack actually went out on loan down at Notts County. I think he was only around about 17, 18 maybe at the time. And Johnny said even then he was head and shoulders. He was a young kid, and he was taking the game by the scruff of the neck. In those lower reaches of the League One, League sort of two, the cut and thrust. And he took the kicks. He dusted himself down, and he said even at that point he knew they had an exceptional talent on his hands, and he couldn't speak more highly of Jack, how he conducted himself, how he managed himself on the pitch, and ultimately the performance that he was displaying down at Notts County.
Yeah, I think that was a really, really important time of his career and of his life, to be honest. Name dropping now, but I got to see him a couple of times at Notts County, and I was chauffeuring his dad to go and watch him. And it's true, you'll hear people talk about his Gaelic football and how that managed to shape him to the way he moves, the way he can take those hits and get back up again. But I think the Notts County experience, there's some, I think it's against Stevenage, you might be able to find it on YouTube, where somebody absolutely chops him in half. It's a really, really horrible challenge. But Jack's always treated it as a bit of a badge of honour, really. If somebody's kicking him, he'll try and beat them with his ability every single time. And I think I think the good thing about the Notts County experience, and I think this is what people who would get to know him over time would find, that he carries himself with such an arrogance and a swagger on a football pitch because he's got, unbelievable ability and self-confidence. But I don't think away from the field that arrogance isn't there. And I think some of the exposure that we've seen to him through the England camp, people have just seen glimmers of this really nice, engaged lad. He's a normal kid.
Yeah.
I think that was his problem early on, Ben. I think he wanted to be the normal kid, even though he was becoming this superstar. He got into a couple of scrapes. We saw him flat out on a pavement in Tenerife, and we saw him all these little things. It took him a while to realise that as a Premier League footballer now, as horrible as it sounds, you probably do need to go the other side of that little velvety VIP rope and just kind of keep yourself fenced off a little bit. And that's horrible to Jack because he prides himself in being a local lad and a member of the community. But so I've given you a very, very long-winded answer there to your Notts County question.
Look, I mean, that's fantastic. And I mean, I'm going to try not to make it the Jack Grealish show, but undoubtedly he's going to permeate through every aspect of tonight's conversation. I mean, we are here to talk about Aston Villa. And before we look ahead to the upcoming campaign, I want to just cast your mind back to last season. Villa finished 11th, but on the back of a tremendous start, which included that 7-2 win over Liverpool, the current champions at the time. Was there an overall sense of disappointment in the fact that Villa finished outside that top half of the table and their season almost pitted out in the second half of the year?
I think there was, and I think they probably did the season the wrong way around. Really, if they've had that slow first half of the season, then come out the block second half of the season, we'd all be buzzing and stuff. I think the danger is, and I think this is the same with any big club, is that it's expectation levels, isn't it? And I think that Villa the previous season had stayed up on the very last day of the season against the odds. To be honest, it looked like they were doomed before the first lockdown struck. So, in my mind, anything over and above, if they'd have stayed up on the penultimate weekend of the season last season, it would have been
it's an improvement.
Would have been progress. But when you see them spank the reigning champions 7-2, and they went to Arsenal and gave them a bit of a battering as well. Starting to dig out our passports and starting to believe that Europe could be a real genuine proposition. So it did peter out a little bit, but again, without it being the Jack Grealish show, you lose Jack Grealish for 2 months of your season. I don't think you can replace that. Not just the ability and the attacking impetus that he brings to the team. He's become a real talisman as well. He's become a real leader, and you wouldn't really expect it. And it was a masterstroke of Dean Smith to give him the captaincy a couple of years ago, because nobody really saw that in him except Dean Smith. But there's been times, not last season so much, but the previous season, where he was carrying Villa on his shoulders. That year that Villa stayed up by the skin of the teeth, it was Jack Grealish carrying him by the shoulders. So I think, and this is probably where some of your kind of injury expertise can come in, because if you get a full season out of Jack Grealish, Villa can dare to dream. Villa can dare to kick on to the next stage again, because you've seen the stat, most foul player in the Premier League again, despite missing 2 months of the season. He's starting to deliver his numbers in terms of goals and assists now. So I don't know whether you get many Villa fans agreeing with me on this, but I'm kind of glad that Villa didn't make that extra leap this last season, because I think it makes Dean Smith's job harder. I think now that they've finished 11th, that's a bar that Villa can actually strive to beat. Whereas if Villa had made it into Europe, does the fan base suddenly get impatient that we're not in the Champions League within 3 years of getting in the Premier League? And I think I don't want the Villa fan base, of which I'm a season ticket holder, I don't want us to lose faith in this project just because we have a bad year. This manager, the chief executive in Christian Purslow, the owners in Wes Edens and Nassif Sawiris have taken Villa. That was a Villa on the brink. We couldn't pay the bills, under the last remnants of the Tony Jaa era. So I want to see steady progress year on year, rather than us having one really mad season that gets us on the cusp and then we fall away and the fan base is clamouring for it to be ripped up again. I'm quite happy with the rate of progress the Villa are making at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you touched up. Obviously, we've touched upon Jack already, but just to give you a little bit of context into his importance to that team during the first half, he created 25% of all Villa's chances, more than a third of all of their big chances. And even after missing that 2-month chunk period where Villa only won, I think, 3 games out of 12, he still ended up creating the most chances and having the most big chances. So looking ahead to next season, and we, as it currently stands, as we're recording, just post Euros, and Jack's probably enjoying a well-deserved break and maybe a few shandies and baby shams. The big question is always going to be, when we have so much media speculation of, is he going to stay or will he go? You touched upon it. Jack's already been pictured in next season's Villa kit. Fans are taking that as a good sign. It's a thumbs up. It's a done deal. I mean, are we hopeful that Jack will remain at Villa Park for the start of the new campaign?
We're always hopeful. We've had this for a couple of years now. We had it last season, and the new contract came out. I think he ended up signing it with his pet dog, in a rather random a random photo opportunity. I think it boils down to this for me. Jack Grealish, in my mind, and I am slightly Claret and Blue biased, but Jack Grealish, in my mind, is worth more to Aston Villa as the selling club or as the club in possession of Jack Grealish than I think he still is to the buying club. Now, to me, Aston Villa don't need the money. They're back in the Premier League gravy train. They've got some of the richest owners in the Premier League now, so they don't need the money. And I think what Villa have been good so far is delivering on their promises to Jack Grealish. Get us in the Premier League, we'll do this. Consolidate us in the Premier League, we'll do that. And I think last season Villa's recruitment drive was good. It was 4 or 5 players that added quality rather than the 12 or 13 that they needed the previous summer. Done that again. I think it's a real statement signing with the sign of Buendia. And I think they're trying to say to Jack, we value your loyalty, but trust us. We know where you want to go. Wouldn't it be sweet if you could get us there, if you could be there with your club? So I think Villa could hold out, in my mind. I mean, I'm not sitting around the negotiating table. Villa could hold out for 150 million quid for Jack Grealish. I genuinely believe that. And I think if Man City or somebody else wants to come and start the bidding at 100 million, I think that is Villa's in a strong bargaining position, because they could say, well, right, 100 million, you clearly want Jack Grealish. Do you want him for another 50 on top of that? And, Jack Grealish is not going to agitate for a move. He's a Villa fan through and through. He's been the main inspiration, the main talisman between turning Villa into Championship also runs to a club with genuine ambitions for European football. So I don't think he's going to be the one who's going to kick up a fuss and throw his toys out the pram to force a move. That's not me saying that Jack Grealish doesn't want to play at the highest level. We saw how desperate he was to be involved in the Euros. We know he wants to win things. He's from a Villa family, but they're also very ambitious. They want to make sure that they maximise Jack's talent. But I think if it gets to a place where somebody pays the going rate of what Villa think he's worth, there can be a grown-up conversation. There's enough credit in the bank from both parties to say, okay, you go with our best wishes, all the best. Let's go and reinvest that money. I hope it doesn't come to that. I really don't. And as a fan, I've thought through lockdown, are me and my son ever going to actually watch Jack Grealish in the flesh in a Villa shirt again? And I've been clinging to the fact that we can. So we're only a month away now. So please don't go. Let's get another season out of you at least.
Yeah. So you think maybe the signing of Emiliano Buendia, and obviously Villa have been heavily linked with Emile Smith-Rowe. I think if reports are to be believed, two bids, one of 25 and 30 million, have been rejected by Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. Those signings are not to pacify the Villa supporters, with Jack Grealish potentially leaving, but these are maybe brought in to support Jack and hopefully elevate and take Villa onto that next level, you would think?
I think so. Yeah, I genuinely do think so. I just think that Jack's been sold the idea of this project, and we can get sentimental sometimes, can't we? And you hear the things about it's a short career and players have got to like I say, maximize their short earning window, if you like. But it's not fake, this Jack Grealish love of Aston Villa. I've got to know his dad quite well. I was quite lucky back in the day when he was coming through the ranks. I didn't quite believe the hype when they were saying, "Oh, this is the next best thing." I'm not sure his dad did either, to be honest. Back then, that it was going to become this absolute, legend of a player. But I've seen pictures of the season ticket that he used to have, and the letter that he was that his mum and dad sent to the school when he joined Villa at Bodymore Heath for the first time. This is genuine. This is genuine. So it's going to have to take something. It's going to have to take a club that says, Jack, you come to us. Not only will you be paid beyond your wildest dreams, but you will have a mantelpiece that is absolutely creaking under the weight of Premier League titles, Champions League titles over the next 5 years, prime time in your career. It could happen, it could happen. He's clearly where English football's concerned and where English footballers are concerned, is clearly one of the most attractive players to be. I don't mean that because of his cute quiff and all that. I mean attractive players that he can
nice legs
put with those big calves and those big thighs. He can put bums on seats because he's an entertainer. So I can see why people want to do that. But 150 million quid, Man City are going to have to. I've put 150 million quid. Let's start at 100 million quid. Manchester City or whatever suitors are going to have to say, is he the difference? Man United, is he the difference between Man United finishing in the Champions League and winning the Premier League? If they think that one signing is the difference, maybe they'll pay that money. Man City, is it the difference between us getting to the Champions League final and actually winning the Champions League? If they think it is, they'll pay the money. I'm not sure whether clubs will value him in those terms enough to be the game changer in that sense, to pay that premium. Does that make sense?
It does. It certainly does. I mean, Jack Grealish aside, he's the star, he's the main man. But a lot of our people who'll be watching this video, or the graphic, they're all fantasy football addicts, and they'll be looking at this Villa squad, and they'll be looking at some potential assets within the team. So I just want to go through a couple of players and just to sort of get your thoughts on how you think they'll maybe fare next season. And we'll talk about another new signing, Ashley Young, predominantly playing on the left-hand side, but he comes into direct competition with Matt Targett. I think he played in all 38 Premier League games last season. Is Ashley Young a signing to challenge for those fullbacks spots, or is it a case of he's being brought in following the loss of departures of Neil Taylor and Bjorn Engels?
Yeah, it's a very strange one, Ashley Young, because it doesn't really quite fit the type that Villa are going for at the moment. Villa's recruitment policy seems to be spotting players on the up, just on the cusp of really being Premier League ready, and making sure they get them on long-term deals, so they sell on value, so Villa are getting the value of them either over the length of the contract themselves, or that they can make money on the deal because the players are of a good age. So I think Ashley Young was just an opportunistic signing, to be honest, because I think Burnley were having a nibble at him, and they thought, well, if he's coming back to the Premier League to Burnley, we can probably offer a little bit more, both potentially financially and in terms of that little tug of the heartstrings, with having such a good relationship with the club in the first place. I find it really interesting because what is he now? He's just turned 36. I think did he sign in 2007? So he's a different Ashley Young from the one that Villa signed. The Ashley Young that we remember back then was one who was part of the, used to go flying up the pitch, a very counter-attacking team under Martin O'Neill that was built on the pace of Young and Gabby Bonlahor and the like. But I think he's a professional player in good enough nick to not want to settle for being on the bench. You know, I think not only can he potentially offer cover in the fullback areas, probably on both sides, to Matt Targett and to Matty Cash. I might be. This might be a pipe dream, and I might be stuck in the past. I might be stuck in 2007 to 2010, or whenever he was at Villa. But I still think there's an attacking role up for grabs as well. You know, you're thinking that Dean Smith probably won't change the shape too much, so we'll probably play, a 3 behind Ollie Watkins, which means that Jack Grealish, despite us thinking he's a number 10, I think we've decided he's a roving winger, isn't he? So I think Jack Grealish will still start on the left. I think, I don't know, Buendia, you might know better than me, Ben. I think he probably is going to start on the right, to be honest, although I think he can probably play as a 10 at the moment. I'm probably talking myself out of my own argument here, but I still think Ashley Young, not only can he be a cover for those fullback areas, but I think he can potentially be really exciting cover, perhaps for a 20-minute cameo for those attacking wide areas as well. And I think the other thing that he will add, and Villa have obviously been linked with James Ward-Prowse through the summer as well.
That would be big. That would be big.
Yeah. I don't think Villa are anywhere near good enough in dead ball areas, considering you've got the most foul player in the Premier League who's going to be winning your free kicks in dangerous areas, left, right and centre.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon, so you've hit an excellent segue into my next question, actually. And I was going to throw a name out to you, and it could possibly sit in that number 10 role. I mean, your thoughts. I don't want to give his name straight away. I don't want to spoil it, but we see a different role on the international stage. European Championship qualifications, 7 goals, 2 assists, thrives under the pressure, thrives under that freedom in a more, attacking, less defensive role. How about a John McGinn, sticking them up there in a move away from that, out of that holding alongside maybe Douglas Luiz and putting him up there as part of that 3? Do you think that's something which Dean Smith may be tempted to deploy with Ross Barkley out and Trezeguet, carrying that ACL injury? So, there's potentially there's a place up for grabs in that 3.
I think he could do it. I still think there's a lot more for John McGinn to offer, and I think his Premier League journey has been a little bit disrupted by injuries as well. Villa's first season back in the Premier League, John McGinn was probably the best player early in that season, then got an injury, I think, against Southampton just around Christmas time, and never quite got back to it. He's a really interesting one, McGinn, because he's more than a workhorse. I would like to see him further forward, if I'm being honest. I think he needs to show a little bit more technically than he has done so far. But then again, has he played an expansive enough role to do that? I don't know. It's interesting. I'm just trying to think who Villa would have in there next season. It's probably the one place where we haven't quite nailed down who plays that 10 for Villa.
Yeah, I mean, El Ghazi I suppose he could be deployed in there, though he may prefer a wider role, and with Buendia more central, all in behind Ollie Watkins, possibly. But listen, I mean, I could talk to you all night, Matt. I just want to finish on a fantasy god, a guy who came from absolute obscurity at Arsenal, and he signed at Villa Park, and now he's just been, a part of a Copa. Is a Copa America. I hope I've got that right. With Argentina, and he's off the back of a fantastic season. I mean, just how good is Emiliano Martinez, and where's the limit for him?
He's brilliant, and again, more power to Villa's recruitment team for spotting him, for understanding the angst and frustration he was going through at Arsenal and being able to pluck him from there. Really, I don't think we realised quite how good he was until he arrived. I think I'm a big Tom Heaton fan and was really, really disappointed and frustrated for Tom Heaton when he got injured away at Burnley on New Year's Day 2020, was it? I think.
It was.
I've lost track. And I thought, why Villa signing another goalkeeper? Give Tom Heaton patience and he'll be back. But Martinez has taken it to another level. He's the full package, I think, really. You know, he's agility-wise, command of his box, his distribution, he's good. You know, for South American, I think he's an adopted Brit now, so his communication is good as well. And it just goes to show, and it's not just him, the back four in front of him, which was fairly consistent for most of last season, with Matty Targett, who was much improved on the left, Matt Cash, who was a revelation on the right, Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa, either of whom I think were good enough to have been called into the Euro squad. Obviously, it was Mings who got the nod. They formed a formidable unit, which, if you consider how many goals Villa shipped the previous season, to have one of the meanest defences last season was a remarkable turnaround. But Martinez is a major factor in that, and I suppose the childish element of me really enjoys this little bit of this fake rivalry that's emerged between Villa and Arsenal in recent seasons. That, you know, Martinez has come and done a good job. We've got Buendia from under the noses of Arsenal. There's the Smith Rowe stuff as well, a few cheeky nibbles at him. I think I wrote the other week that normally Villa and Arsenal at this time of year, the only thing that they're arguing about is who's top of the alphabetic table. But there seems to be this, and a lot of it's Twitter banter and a little bit of, you know, winding the fan bases up. But if you think that 3 years ago, Villa were probably trying to have banter with Bristol City with respect to Bristol City and Preston, and that was the sphere in which Villa were operating. To think that Villa were 6 points behind Arsenal last season, and listen, we know it's an Arsenal team that's in transition themselves. Villa did the double over Arsenal last year, finished 6 points off them last year, and have clubs like that in their sights. That's where Villa are next. How can they close that 6 point gap? How can they get into Europe? So I think that just shows you the journey that Villa have been on, really. And that's why, you know, touching on what we said earlier, can't be too disappointed about finishing 11th in the Premier League, because it's a really good bar for Villa to try and jump over this season. Yeah,
superb. Mat Kendrick, Villa expert, correspondent, Reach PLC, Birmingham Live. Listen, it's been insightful, fantastic. Absolutely loved your knowledge, and look, I just really appreciate you giving up your time, Matt, to speak to us. Thank you once again, and we'll look forward to having you on again very soon in the near future, when you maybe, you know, when things have calmed down just a little bit.
No, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. Next time you're taking that long trip down to Birmingham, let's catch up for a pint.
Yeah, definitely, Matt, definitely. No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and thank you everyone as well for tuning in. If you have any comments, by all means, pop them in the box below. We do read every one, and we try to get back to as many people as we possibly can. But for now, that is the Villa preview done.